Leo here, at your service. This is MLBB Around the World, a series where we talk about all of the teams competing at MSC at EWC 25. So you're in the know before we jump into this year's biggest MLBB esports event yet. MLBB Around the World is powered by ASUS ROG, and I hope you enjoy our very first episode. To take us through the wildcard teams as we go through MLBB Around the World, we got two dashing gentlemen joining us on our first episode. We got Mr. MPL LATAM himself, Kronos, and the one and only incomparable Huskkiee joining us. Gentlemen.
Hello, hi guys. My name is Huskkiee. You guys know me from MPL Malaysia on the English podcast. Yeah, that's it.
Well, I'm Kronos, guys. I'm from India. I'm English cast for MPL LATAM. And happy to be around for this podcast. Let's go.
Gentlemen, thank you for taking the time out of your day to join us on MLBB Around the World and share your thoughts and opinions about the up-and-coming MSC 2025 wildcards. Again, I haven't seen a wildcard this diverse just yet. We got a couple of new regions joining in, and again, these are teams hopeful to join the group stage, but sadly only one of them moves forward. Let's run through the gauntlet and talk about these teams, starting off with the Mongols. They are the representatives of Mongolia. They qualified via the Mongolian national qualifiers. This happened last May 2025, 24th of May, and they 4-1 IHC. IHC used to be the team out of Mongolia. Now it's the Mongols, 4-1. 4-1 isn't much.
Yeah, I think Mongols, like even the roster, I remember to throw back to like a couple of seasons ago, Mongols has always been there. It's either them or IHC. I personally am very happy to see Mongols back on the world stage, right? They have some very notable players that have had a lot of repertoire on the international stage itself. And seeing how they 4-1 ISC, I just quickly looked through the draft, on my free time, and I realized that the Mongols, they have a lot of similarities, with the big regions and how they approach the draft and the heroes that they use. And even in terms of banning out heroes, they also are very closely matching up to what we commonly use.
I think Mongols usually like to follow the global meta as well. And if I'm not wrong, they had a slight bit of a change after their qualifier. I think one of their players are not going to be there in the MSC. Correct me if I'm wrong, but of course they love to play this aggressive style, right? The Mongolians, they call themselves that. And then I think that bringing that to the MSC wildcard is just gonna make them one of the teams to watch out for sure. But I think they are gonna bring in a new flavor that not many people are used to seeing, because we're used to seeing IHC the entire time. This is gonna be something different, and I feel like definitely someone to watch out for.
Yeah, the grand finals wasn't much to look at. Again, a 4-1 win. They did have to crawl through. IHC actually dropped them to the lower bracket, and they crawled through. And you're right, aggression is the name of the game for Mongols. Their average game time is 15 minutes. So even when they lost, and as they had to, regain their momentum, they were still ending quick and winning fast. Talking about the global metagame that they have, they like to ban map-wide threats. They like to take out the Chip, they like to take out the Loyi, they like to take out the Moskov, and then picks-wise, when they can, the Fanny, if it's open, Kimmy, and then Baksha, and they have Pocket Bruno, Faramis, and Hanzo. So this is like the fight.
Yeah, it's a very aggressive lineup, but with a good mix, right? For good balance. Like if I want to go fast early on, I have options to do that with Baxia, but I can dominate my lane with CC. I can play cross map with Moskov, but if I want to pull a fast one on you 2 minutes into the game, I play heroes like Hayabusa and Suyo. So I think the Mongols, they are going to give out most of the wildcard teams a challenge, especially from other regions like LATAM or maybe China, where they have a lot more specific meta game, in their own bubble. When they face off against the Mongols, they gotta quickly adapt to the global meta game instead.
And not just about the global meta, right? Adding on to what Huskkiee said, I think yes, they're adapting the global meta, but like these pocket picks, like the Bruno, the Faramis, the Hanzo, that's absolutely amazing. But one thing I've noticed, a slight bit of a pattern that they have, is they like to play for the early game, especially in the rotation wise, in the roam position. They love to rock that Boxia in the roam position rather than the jungle or the EXP. And then also, if they don't get their hands on the Boxia and they're finding some way to need a little bit more aggression in that mid trio, they usually opt for the Khalid as well. So I think that's something that might catch teams by surprise, knowing how they want to really dominate that first 2 to 3 minutes, especially in that first turtle fight.
Baksha seems to be the successor to Khalid. Don't you guys agree that Khalid seemed to be the proto Baksha? Well, Baksha came first technically, but now people just like the chunkier, dude that rolls around.
Yeah, he moves faster. He has more built-in kit compared to Khalid, where he's guaranteed to get tankier just based off of his passive. His spammable skills, quick movements, and he also has healing reduction, which in of itself is very good. I think Baxia definitely has some weaknesses, like in MPL across the big regions, especially in like MPL NY finals. We see Baxia get manhandled by more experienced teams, but overall, when Baxia is open, teams usually just gravitate towards him, right? His flexibility in 3 different roles also makes him very viable for teams who are a lot more willing to put him in jungle position when needed. I think Aurora Philippines is a very good example where they are willing to put Demon Kai on Baxia jungle and then play a fast game if the situation calls for it.
One team out of the wild cards that actually hasn't started integrating Baksha into their drafts, might be a meta thing, is Zeta Division. Out of Japan for the first time in a long time, Japan is back in the MLBB Esports circuit. They qualified on the same weekend as the Mongols, May 25, 2025, and something tells me they are light years ahead of their own metagame. They don't belong in Japan because they 4-0'd their finals matchup against Reject. Though it was a close match between them and Kingdom Magic, the open qualifiers winner that eventually faced them in the semis, 3-2. But no, as soon as you stepped into the finals, it was all Zeta.
Yeah, and I think about Zeta Division, if you take a look at the style that they like to play, most of their games finish before 15 minutes, right? That's something that usually you don't get to see in wildcard teams. Usually they go on beyond 15 minutes. At least the average is about 15 minutes. Here's about 12, 13-minute games, and they love the snowball. And every single draft that they had in the grand finals, when you take a look at it, none of them are the same. And I don't think there are many picks that are repeated as well. Knowing that they have a wide hero pool, that's a slight bit of an edge you can always give them, and that surprise factor. I mean, think about it. They really rocked an Alucard in the jungle. When was the last time we've seen an Alucard in the jungle, man? That's something that's absolutely crazy, bonkers, especially a grand final qualifier to the MSC wildcard. Game number 2, when you need that swing of momentum in your favor, rocking an Alucard in the final pick, that's something that is kind of unheard of, especially in the past year at least. So that's that extra bit of oomph, that extra bit of spice, that unpredictability, I'd like to call it, about Zeta Division might just give them a slight bit of an edge. But then again, looking at the rotations, the way they play, they might still have a long way to go compared to the other regions that are coming in as powerhouse or favorites later on.
That Alucard pick is one of the 2 things out of Japan that I don't like, really. The other one is an anime that features ice cream being eaten out of a car. Regardless, they have more than just the Alucard jungle. They also played an Odette. Like, where'd that come from?
Yep.
They play an Odette. They play Freya jungle too. In fact, I think Freya is one of those cheese picks that regions that enter MLBB slightly later usually gravitate towards. Right, it's a very cheesy hero, farms fast, fights hard, and if you empower her, if you leave her unchecked, or if you disrespect her, she actually 1v5s you. And actually, Zeta Division pull it off. I think we also see it in our own Mekong qualifiers where the Freya jungles ended up working, even though theoretically she shouldn't. I remember that even last year in the M6 Swiss stage, when people were facing off against, was it like the Mongolian team or the China team, people were banning out Freya just because it's such an annoying cheese pig that people don't want to deal with. So maybe that could also be a funny X factor that could end up dominating the wildcard ban list.
Yeah, they banned the Freya themselves because they're aware of the cheese. They know that it's out there and they don't want to see it. Alongside, of course, metagame mainstays like Kimmy, Harith, Zushin, those are often banned by Zeta. And then to, support their weirdness, to support, the cheese that they're bringing, they often pick up Agatot. Weirdly enough, the Bruno seems to be a, reliable marksman for them. And of course, Valentina. Because again, I think they're just mechanically ahead. They just know how to play the game better than everyone out of Japan at this point. So we'll see how far they make it in the wild cards. Huskkiee, you mentioned the Mekong qualifier, the M Challenge Cup 2025, Season 5, that is. Nightmare made it through, man. You and I were both there. They qualified on 8th of June. They 4-0'd Leon.
That is actually a shocker for me, right? Because leading up to the grand finals, Nightmare wasn't exactly doing the best. Well, in a way that the games were not clean, right? There were a lot of inconsistency with how Nightmare played the game. They were dropping games to teams like RRG Vietnam. They dropped like one game to KOG from Thailand. And will I say that Nightmare is a contender to watch? Sure, but I also feel like if within this 1 month plus they don't brush up on some of the fundamentals, they are going to struggle against the other teams, right? They might get caught off guard themselves because the games that they won against Leon the game duration is vastly different, right? 4-0 game 1 and game 4 was 11 minutes 30 seconds, 13 minutes 22, but game 2 and 3 dragged on past 20 minutes. It was 26 minutes 50 seconds for game 2, 21 minutes 22 seconds on game 3. It's again, you see the inconsistency right there. Like Nightmare has the power picks that they always play, but sometimes they just don't close out the game like you want them to, and it makes you think, like, can they keep that consistency on that world stage?
Yeah, I think I agree when we see that Nightmare really need to work on their fundamentals, because one good thing they have going for themselves is they know how to do a little bit of research, right? Because I think moving into the grand finals, they came in much more prepared compared to Leon Esports. I think that's why they were able to 4-0. Usually when you 4-0 a team, it's more preparation. So they did put in the work in terms of preparation. But then again, when you're on the world stage, when you don't know what to expect, there are teams from around the globe. They really need to put in the work, and Huskkiee is absolutely right when he says that fundamentals are going to be so crucial. Knowing that if you're going to go for games beyond 20, 25 minutes, at that point, a single kill, a single small bit of a change, that can just completely turn the game on its head. And they better be prepared for that, because the meta, again, is slowly shifting. And yes, they're trying to catch up, but at that point, at the MSC wildcard, it's not about trying to catch up. You got to be caught up at that point.
Imagine preparing for 2022. Is that 22? Is that right? Yeah. Imagine preparing for 22 other teams. How are you going to do that? How does one team even think of doing that? Again, there's a lot on the shoulders of Coach Elaine, the mastermind behind the 4-0 sweep against Leon Esports. Just a note, to contrast the almost 30-minute games, at their best, Nightmare can finish under 12. Nightmare has done an 11.5-minute game in the M Challenge Cup. And I think, just to sum up their difficulty, talking about fundamentals, is they suck early game. Like, they're so weird early. Like, they try to get wins in mid. If they don't do that, they just accept that the first 5 minutes are over.
I think that's the testament to having a strong mental. To be honest, if you're giving up within 5 minutes of the game when it starts, at that point, are you really preparing for yourself for the next game, or are you really looking to play it out into the late game? That comes with experience. That comes in with the mentality of having to take it forward. So I think that might be a slight bit that teams definitely need to work on, and preparing for 22 odd teams. I think at that point, how do you do it is probably not a question. You got to do it. You got to find a way, look deep into their drafts, look at what's good, what's bad, especially with this new patch that's coming up. And I think the new hero, Wu Zetian, I think she's gonna be available for the wild card, if I'm not wrong. So that hero can just make or break an entire entire game. So that might be something that's a random wild card in a wild card itself.
I think the Chinese region would have a slight innate advantage since they get to play 13 way before everyone else, right? So they have the mechanics, or at least they have the mechanics figured out. I also want to give a quick shout out to Coach Arcadia. I did this like plenty of times where in one of the interviews in NPLMY, he did mention that this meta is a lot more flexible. You have so much more choices. And I think it balances out the skill when you look at which side to pick in the draft, right? It almost seems like red side is no longer the side that gets shafted. Sure, you have priorities that you need to take care of, but then you can more favorably initiate trades that can benefit you in the long run. And I think preparing for a meta that has so many choices. You look at unique hero picks across regions. Malaysia has 60 plus. Indonesia, last I checked, has like more than 70. Philippines also like 70 plus. That is going to be a challenge for all of the coaches out there.
Yeah, Red 5 is super powerful. Like you pick a box on red, it's over. You can even make blue side flexible again because of how open the metagame is. And how perfect, when we're talking about the metagame and we're in Mekong anyways, a metagame trend that has been a thing for the past 2 years is Filipino imports. Huskkiee, the jersey you wear is concrete evidence of this phenomenon happening. Yeah, no, if I'm not mistaken, LATAM too. There's a good bunch of Filipino players around that league. And Mekong has also seen an injection of Filipino talent suddenly. I'll tell you now how important it is. Nightmare has 2 Filipino teams in the wildcard. Legion Esports suddenly has 2 What? There's 2 Filipinos in Legion Esports now. They are the other Mekong representative. They have their own qualifier out of Vietnam. That's called VMC Spring 2025. And among them now are 2 Filipino players in mid shocker. And then in Rome, it's Cram God. These are MDL/MPL sub veterans. And they're joined by, of course, the Legion Esports old guard in Meow, Joga, and Daylight. So Is this the first time that we've seen Mekong with Filipinos in it?
I believe so. Last season when we did MCC season 5, there was no imports. It was like full on local squad for all the teams. But I think the world at this point has accepted the fact that Filipino imports are mostly beneficial to a region, right? Like they bring in the experience to kind of elevate not the environment, but you elevate the playing field for everyone else. Again, like you say, SRGOG is a perfect example. We won 3 seasons with Filipino imports for a long time, and even until now, players like Innocent and Cram has been the cornerstone of SRGOG. Not to say that the Malaysian players are not, but I think without them, we wouldn't have kind of found that glass ceiling to break through. And that's how they made this grand finals look so easy. It was so much easier winning the 3rd trophy than the first 2 for SRGOG, and that's how far ahead they are of the curve.
That says a lot. The 3rd one is the easiest.
It is.
I think Filipino imports definitely make a big impact, especially you're talking about Vietnam, you're talking about Mekong, we're talking about Malaysia. I think we even have Filipino imports in Indonesia as well, right? I think so. Those are some of the big regions for Mobile Legends. And I think knowing that, because Filipinos, I think we can all agree at this point now, no matter how much denial there is, they're just built different when it comes to this game, right? When it comes to esports, kind of built different in MOBAs, especially in mobile MOBAs. And currently looking at the way that they're trained, looking at the level of competition there is, and there's a reason why every single team, when it comes to the world tournaments, when it comes to international tournaments, they want a boot camp in the Philippines, right? Because the level of competition is just so much higher. Not just your scrims, not just the easy access of it, but also the rank games to a certain point. It doesn't feel like you're relaxing or trolling anymore. It's still a little bit of practice. And I think for teams like Legion Esports, teams like Nightmare Esports, teams that are coming through from different regions that haven't really taken part much in such world stage matches, boot camping in the Philippines or facing off against Filipino teams might just be a slight bit of practice that they might need, the scrims that before we go on into the wild card. And also talking about Legion Esports, 4-0 their way into the finals. So, I mean, 4-0 in the finals. So that, again, speaks to the influx and the influence that the Filipino players have had in their entire team.
Kronos.
That so yeah, that they might need some time to evolve and get into the wild card, be a favorite at least, but definitely need to look out for them still. Can't be underestimated.
I'll do you one better. They just didn't 4-0 their finals. They 10-0 the whole playoffs. They owned VMC. Like there was nothing no one could do. Talking about their metagame, again, we've seen Joga take over in the jungle for the past 2 years. Still rocks the Joy, still rocks the Hayabusa. If allowed, I think he would Fanny. Nope, but they banned the Fanny themselves, so they know how dangerous that is. You still see the meta staples in the Harith, the Granger, the Moskov, very much capable. Again, I don't think there's anything that Legion can't do in Mekong. It just comes down to just the macro. I think macro is where, these more developed regions get the one up over Legion.
Yeah, like Legion Esports has just been the Vietnam Titans, right? Like no other team in Vietnam has even came close to them. Clean swept the group stage, clean swept, like you said, 10-0 the playoffs. They 7-0 RLG, right? Upper bracket 3-0, grand finals 4-0. Every single game they made it quick and painless for their opponents. And even before the Filipino imports, we look at Nart and Hey, like they also have made a name for themselves, especially Hey times 10 times. B, you love his name or his gameplay. He has brought Vietnam onto the world stage, and I think that's a very precious thing to have, considering that nations like Vietnam and Thailand are not really well known in ML, but then you have a team that represents them, and not only is not a one-hit wonder, but always somewhere, in the conversation whenever we reach that international stage.
And that's our take on Legion. We're at about halfway through the wildcard teams, 4 out of 8 this time. Before we move on, gentlemen, I want to hear your thoughts on the wildcard format, because spoiler alert, in the main card, in the group stage starting, they pulled an M6. The Swiss format from M6 was such a hit that they're doing it again this year. What are your takes on Swissing up the wild card as well? They'll split them up into 2, but it's still basically win 2, you're in, lose 2, you're out.
I think it's not a bad idea. Just because it's the best of 3. I think
it's a popular.
Yeah. I think the biggest problem I had with Swiss stage last year in M6 was the fact that we had to go through so many best of ones. And I think the best of ones, they don't do the teams much justice. I understand their time constraints, like time and resource constraint, but I feel like the fact that it's a best of one Swiss stage really wasn't doing a lot of the teams justice. I'm not just saying that because SRG, we almost got grouped because of that, but you look at a lot of other examples, teams that come into the competition, have a good track record, and they are somehow just winning, right? Like BTK, they almost made it through groups, if not for running into TLID and then Onyx PH afterwards. I think BO1 is a no-no. So the fact that it's double elims BO3 makes it more fair for teams to have a second chance if they do lose out the first one.
I think a more refined system of the Swiss that took place in... That's what this is, giving teams much more of an equal and fair footing, a fair chance, like Huskkiee said. I think that's the right way to put it. But also at the same time, I feel like it's an exciting format that's not just used in not just the wildcard and the M6. It's been carried out throughout the entire year in different regions. I think MPL LATAM as well had its own Swiss format in the regular season. So that speaks itself. It's a really impressive format. It's something that's attractive. Teams like it. It's more entertaining, but also at the same time, I think definitely gives us a lot more to look at teams, especially given the fact that it's a BO3 now.
Yep, there's always something to watch out for. Like every single match means something, even when you're down and out, even in the lowest of lower bracket matches. If you're alive, you're alive. If you haven't lost 2, you can still do it. And the fact that it's a best of 3 is definitely an improvement to what happened from the last World Championships. Kronos, you mentioned that MPL LATAM has used such a format as well, and I will not disagree with you. MPL LATAM has been super entertaining in no short lack of the format, nor the action, and especially the commentators. You and Vey really kicked butt, calling the action all throughout. Kudos to you guys. Talk to us about Influence Rage. Influence Rage is the runner-up to Corinthians, who is now in the group stage. They are in the wildcards. What's their game like?
I'm telling you, man, when we moved into the grand finals after the upper brackets, it felt pretty much everyone expected Influence Rage to take it. That's how good they are. So when it comes to especially their drafting style, shout out to Coach Blackjacks. I know him personally from a few years, from a couple of seasons, not years, up to a year now. And I've seen him drafting for different regions in like European tournaments. He's done it for NACT with Avalon previously. But now coming into Influence Rage, he just brings in an extra bit of spice, a lot of research, a lot of data. I spoke to him about how we won the upper bracket finals against Corinthians, because that got everyone by surprise. And he said that they prepare for every possible scenario. And looking at the way Influence Rage just shocked the world shocked everyone in LATAM, taking out the Corinthians in the upper brackets, because they were the favorites. After the introduction of the Filipinos, Hesu and Flick, I think they were definitely the favorites to take the whole thing. But again, Influence Rage just have such a unique style of drafting, have a wide hero pool, and that goes to show they know how to play their own game rather than playing the opponent's game. Because there are some teams that like to go with their own momentum, their own tempo. And Corinthians is one of those teams, right? We in LATAM, Vey and I like to call it a run and gun style, like how you play basketball. You fast pass in, go quick, get the basket. That's how they like to play. Run and gun, aggressive, right off the bat. Once they pick up their tempo, it's almost impossible to stop them throughout. But the only team that has done it is Influence Rage. They love to slow down the pace of the game. 2 minutes to 5 minutes, it is just them being very technical with whatever trades they're looking to take across the map. And mind you, every single time they take trades, they usually give away more kills, but they're ahead in terms of the gold, they're ahead in terms of turrets, and that's just speaking volumes of their macro. Their macro is just absolutely impeccable. And I think they would have made it to the main stage of the MSC if not for that one game where they went out crazy with their draft for some reason. I don't know, maybe it was nerves, maybe it was pressure, maybe it was players asking that they want to showcase their skills, especially in game number 7, relying on their comfort picks. I think apart from that, they were winning pretty much every single draft in the entire grand finals. I'll be honest, while I was casting and myself and Vey, I never really thought Corinthians was going to win. Although I did vote for them as a caster prediction. That's because I like the way they play. But it just felt like at that point, Influence Rage were going to take it all. But unfortunately, it didn't. And they come into the wild card. I think they're coming in as I know you said save it for the end. I think they're coming in as favorites a little bit here.
All right, this is eye-opening because Huskkiee, you and I saw Influence Rage earlier in the year. If you'll remember, Mobile Masters, they were out there and they kind of looked like a deer in the headlights because they got ran through. Short to say, they got a few upset wins, but now this is making sense because they're a very macro-based team. They like to take their time. That's not going to fly in Southeast Asia.
No, like Southeast Asia, we love to fight, right? If you're not ready to fight, if you're not ready to throw hands the moment the game starts, you've already lost half the game. That's how SEA likes to play. But I think, the callback to Mobile Masters, I remember a lot about Influence Rage just because I was on Stream C, so we get the lesser exciting games, so we were getting like Influence Rage a lot. And at first it was like, okay, Influence Rage is like, we get Influence Rage, it's gonna be a 2-0. Like, there's no way this team is winning. It's a battle of like which team has better fundamentals or which team has better mechanics. And then the upset happened.
Tell that to BTR. Tell that to BTR.
And then they beat BTR. I think it was the biggest shocker. But I remember when BTR lost to them, it was like Kronos mentioned, right? It wasn't like a fast game. Like BTR were making a lot of sloppy mistakes. The game was dragging out long, and Influence Rage got really, really comfortable. But in games that they lost, it's either the game dragged on late and the enemy team is just more polished, or they just get ran through early on because they're not ready to fight.
Yeah, I think that's a key factor. What Huskkiee meant, that's the right word. If they get run through, it's difficult for them to make a comeback. And usually, if they're feeling like they run through in the first 2 minutes, if they're 4-0 down in kills, 2K down in gold, they slow the pace of the game down so much. Like it's just unreal at some point, especially with someone like Hesu and Flick. Not even Hesu, Flick, who likes to play these really burst-heavy assassins, fast-paced. It just felt like two opposites in the MPL LATAM finals, and they just know how to slow the pace down. And I think this time coming in, yes, as Southeast Asia teams love to play these fast snowball heavy, team fight compositions. If a game goes beyond 12 minutes, I would just consider them as favorites because they just know how to play the map. They know how to slow the pace down. They know which fights to pick, and they just come out the better side, even if they lost out on 4 kills. So like, they just know how to turn it around, and I think that just goes to show how much work they put in their macro.
As long as the base stands.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
I feel quickly add on. Like I think if they do make it two MSC groups out from wildcards, that we can put the theory to the test, right? Like how good is that?
I agree.
Is the basics past the 12 to 15 minutes? Because there are teams that they snowball, they notice that you try to slow the game down, and they use that as an incentive to snowball you even harder. I think SRG OG in Malaysia is a very, very good team. Right? I think like RRQ, Hoshi, and even like TLID at their prime was also a team that if you try to slow the game down, it's an invitation for them to just run you through even harder. I think that is going to be a very good test for Influence Rage if they make it to the group stage.
I
agree.
I don't know if I'm stretching, gentlemen, but a team that has the same narrative thread as Influence Rage is a team from way across the ocean. I'm talking about Team Falcons from MPL MENA. They as well were the upper bracket seed in their playoffs. They qualified last May 31, 2025, when they swept in a best-of-3, 2-0'd Ultra Legends, who would then eventually beat them in the grand finals 4-1. So imagine that. You came in from the top, very dominant, very powerful, and then you walk in. I remember, this was a night I will not forget. I checked in, and it was Chefin and Realize, and I was watching them, and I said, gentlemen, I'm gonna stay. I think Falcons can do this. 4-1 it ends. I'm like, all right, good night, gentlemen. It's an early night. So, talk to me. Did you guys watch the same match as I did?
I didn't watch the whole thing, but I did catch like bits and pieces of the grand finals. I think you look at Team Falcons, they have memorable names, right? Like Sanji, Kafin, like Tro. We all know these lads. But I feel like MPL MENA is the region that I felt the most, how do I put it, slightly disappointed with overall. Just by looking at how Team Falcons played the game. I felt like Team Falcons, if you put the meta picks aside, which I think that they have caught up, right? They are going for the heroes that you usually see. I put the bans aside as well because they banned like Ishunshin the entire grand finals against Ultra Legends, so that's a pocket pick ban. But aside from that, I think Team Falcons have a lot that they need to polish. I think this team is, at least from what we've seen, is a team based off of that emotion, right? Like you tilt them a little bit, the whole ship just sinks, and it seems like Falcons have a really hard time recovering when the chips are down, when things get hard, and it's very easy to derail them overall. Even though you give them the best picks, and that's something that they have to fix coming into the wild cards because a lot of teams that will be a lot more polished than they are.
Yeah, I agree. I think Team Falcons definitely were kind of disappointing in the grand finals. I myself caught, I think, 2 games. And after 2 games, I was just like, it's not looking like Falcons going to make it back. Even though, I like to give teams the benefit of the doubt with the grand finals, the way it went on 2-0 against Ultra Legends, just catching them by surprise. It felt lackluster, I would say, just like how Huskkiee found it disappointing. It felt lackluster, the grand finals, knowing how Sanji, Troll, Kafin, these are the regular names that we've seen for a long time, and just knowing that they weren't able to pull their weight in the grand finals when it's needed the most, it just didn't feel like they were themselves on that day, maybe. But also looking at how they went about the game, but being emotional, letting momentum, not even momentum, I would say tempo, affect them really a lot. And knowing that there's no way for them to come back, they're not looking to take many risks. They're not looking to play their own game. They get caught up in the mind games of the opposition. And that's why you can see not just the Eastern shit, they even banned out Lucas, right? Just 5 bans of Lucas. That's absolutely crazy. If you ask me, they're not even looking to trade for it. And not just that, the Matilda something, of course, they got to ban out. But again, Team Falcons, yes, they're coming in from an MPO region that's super strong, that we like to see a big name in the EWC, especially being EWC club champions last year. Just, I didn't know, I think nobody expected them to be in the wildcard stage from MENA. And that just goes to show maybe they were a bit overconfident also when it came to the finals. Maybe that could be a factor, but hopefully we get to see the best of these players and the best of the team coming on the wild card. But then again, I'm not convinced. That's what I would say.
Yeah. MPL MENA is still up to today. Is it what, season 7 now? 2 seasons later, a year and change. I still think they're the region of gold laners. Like, they're so gold laner reliant that if things don't shape itself around your core, that's it, you're gone. And that's why they have to very specifically ban out these heroes that compromise your gold laner. I think that's one of their main mistakes in the grand finals, is especially game 5. That game where they needed to do or die, right? Show up or throw up and call it a day. They forgot to ban out the Low Yi and Chip. Like, I don't know why it was open. That's it. Like, if you have both Chip and Low Yi on the other side, you better reconsider your choices, man. That's what led to them, again, playing messy. Sometimes it's not how you play it. It's just the draft you end up with.
They even got a Masha for Ultra Legends, right? Like, we remember that game between Onyx and TLID, like game 1 upper bracket, play-in, sorry. Game 1, Coach Jab got a red side Loyi Chip Masha. That game basically ended in the draft. It's you cannot allow these kind of things to happen. I feel like this meta is versatile enough for you to make trades, but certain trades are forbidden. It's straight up illegal. Like, if somehow like a sequence of hero gets picked, I think that game is an auto forfeit. It's just too hard to play. Like, it's not worth it to go for these kind of trades.
So here's the hoping that Team Falcons, despite the disappointment getting dropped to the wild card, getting dropped in the grand finals, despite being the favorites, being, you know, one of the biggest names in all of EWC, prove us all wrong. We have one team out of a region that we rarely check in with. Number one, mainly because they don't have an English broadcast, but I am a big fan of the ECA, very close to my heart, the MCC Season 5. Their wild card rep is none other than another big name in esports here, joining the fray, Virtus.pro. Real quick, MCC Season 5 is played in global ban pick. So they qualified June 1st, 3-1 versus Verso time, and eventually they would just get run through in the upper bracket by Team Spirit, would end up in the grand finals against Team Spirit as well, and they scored nothing in the grand finals. So Team Spirit, again, it's a Zeta Division Legion Esports kind of situation. I think that they are just way ahead of their own region, of the meta game there, and they belong on the world stage. So let's talk about Virtus.pro.
Virtus.pro, I think famous name. We all know about it. They're back, at least in Mobile Legends this time. And just looking at the way that they play Virtus.pro, I think their jungler is someone that they're really reliant on him, of course. But at the same time, their team kind of revolves around their mid laner, right? If the mid laner is able to play aggressive, if they're able to go head to head against the opposing mid laner, then I think they definitely get the better of it. That's where you see against Team Spirit in the upper bracket finals. So the 2 games that they pulled off against them were through heroes that actually had a slight bit of an advantage in the mid lane. And I think that will definitely be a big factor to look at how they like to play around that. But apart from that, I mean, Team Spirit, of course, they're one of the top. They are the top team in EECA region, and I don't think they really have much of a competition with their lineup. But Virtus.pro, I think, coming through this time of the wild card, they're gonna be surprises, of course, from their side. But again, I feel like this is a team that really relies on early aggression with the assassins in the jungle. I've rarely seen them play tanks, if I'm not wrong. The most that we've seen is the X-Borg And apart from that, just really aggressive on the Selena in the mid lane. And they're really good with the Selena and Suyo combo. That is something that teams need to watch out for. Because if you let them play that, then you might as well give them the game.
They also have some pocket picks themselves. The Lunox mid, right? I know it's a global ban, and that's probably the reason we see Lunox. But it's good to know that at least they have that in their arsenal. The Zaz also got picked up in I think the first game against Spirit in the grand finals. But aside from the players, the one guy I'm looking at is actually Coach Fly Solo. Right? He's also one of a very notable coach in the MLBB scene. He has no pun intended, flew solo across the world. He was with Todak at one point. He did coach Todak in MPL MY. They didn't win the season, of course, but I think he also has a very unique way of approaching the game. As a coach, really doing his homework, catching up to the current meta, and being able to bring Virtus.pro to just the wildcards itself. I think is very, very impressive, considering that he is I believe the only coach on the team. There's no assistant coach, at least not officially listed.
Yeah, he is. And it helps that he's coaching a team that was a team prior. Kronos, you mentioned Zar Egoist and Bober. They are Teiko alumni. So they've known each other for a long time. This is Coach Fly Solo loading someone else's save game, and he just fixed that. I would assume that there was some polishing involved, and this definitely helped in their campaign against a titan of EECA MLBB. But again, there's only so much you can do with a squad that was always, like I hope I'm not offending all the Teiko fans out there, a B tier team out of ECA, because team spirit number one, right? No question. Team spirit is even top 4 on the world stage. So you compare that, and it's worlds apart. Besides the fact that it is global ban pick for Virtus.pro, you have to consider that they know how to make the most of what they have, because they play the game relatively fast. The games that they actually win, on average, end at 15-16. So they don't waste any time. Their longest win is 19 minutes. So they didn't even make it to TikTok timers, and they can win in 10. So something tells me, even with global ban pick, they know how to make these weird lineups work.
Yeah, and you know what? I wanted to add one thing about Virtus.pro as well. This is a team that finished mid-table in the regular season, right? And they like upper mid-table, 5th place, if I'm not wrong. And knowing that they have the mid lane duo Zor Egoist and especially Bober, and Coach Fly Solo just maximizing the utility that both of them can bring to the table, the synergy of them. And not to forget another thing, with the format of the MSC Wildcard being BO3 with the Swiss and then going to groups, and Virtus.pro are a team that gets better with time. They adapt better, and knowing that they have the global ban system, they have a plethora of heroes that they're really good at, because at that point you need to be good at every single hero and not just know one or the few meta heroes inside out. So they have these pocket picks like the Lunox mid that Huskkiee said earlier as well. So knowing that this is a team that gets better as the tournament progresses, I think that will be their biggest strength when it comes to the wild card.
And here's the hoping that Virtus.pro shows us something new by proving that the global ban pick system works, and it leads to creative and unusual wins and lineups in a non-global ban pick tournament like MSC. Let's cover our last team in the wild card. We're talking about the most recent team to qualify, and that is Rare Atom. They lost in a best of 5 series that went all the way against the then would become China qualifier champion in Yanfeng Yao Guai. This happened June 15th, just the weekend prior to the recording of this very episode. And real quick, some caveats. That China exclusive hero, how do you pronounce that one?
Wu Zetian.
Wu Zetian?
Was it?
Yes.
I didn't want to butcher it. Wu Zetian is in play. They tried to use her a couple of times, one, and then they have imports. So something to note, it's an even playing field there in China. They have 2 MPL/MDL ID alumni in Don and Lanaya. So let's talk about it. Rare Atom.
I think another caveat that needs to be mentioned is also they only have 3 bans per team, right? It's not like our 5 bans per team,
That
which
too.
that also is like makes a huge difference. That's why a lot of picks go through. For me, it's a limiting factor. Unfortunately, that's the case for their qualifiers. But overall, I remember seeing Lanaya play. When was it? Like way back then. I think in MPL we also played under Dewa for 2 seasons. So the fact that they have no imports on top of Red Atom already is a good sign, right?
And a couple Snapdragons. He's played a couple Snapdragons.
And a couple of Snapdragons, yes.
Yeah.
I remember seeing that too. Like bringing DFYG to 5 games, it's not an easy feat because I think DFYG is the next team in the on the hierarchy, right after teams like KBG and YBin Gaming. Even for a short while, DFYG was in their shadows. But I think right now it's fair to say that DFYG is the leader of the pack, and Red Atom has been able to not only push them to the absolute limit, but also proven to DFYG that Red Atom themselves can play that late game. In fact, the 2 games that they won went past 20 minutes.
Yeah, and about Rare Atom, we're talking about how DFYG, YBG, KBG are kind of like the powerhouses. China, Rare Atom are making their way through. I was fortunate enough to bring the English broadcast for the MSI earlier this year, where Team Spirit, I think Aurora Turkey were there as well. And looking at Rare Atom, I'm telling you, after watching all the Chinese team play, I'm a fan of Rare Atom. I like the way they play. I like what they bring into the table. Lanaya's new addition to the jungle. Dawn is doing really well in the EXP lane. But y'all are sleeping on my boy Cat9, man. I'm telling you, this guy on the roam position, he's just completely unexpected. And of course, he is really good on the choke. I know we know players who are really good on the Cho in the roam position in Southeast Asia. And I can say he's probably one of those that's getting to that point, getting to that level slowly. But in China, probably the best Cho that I've seen in a long time from whatever pro scene they've had, for how long they've had it. He is one of those players that looks to provide the space, peel for the team. And if he's playing a pickoff hero in the roam position, the team revolves around him when it comes to the play style. That's one thing about Cat9 in Rare Atom. And I'll be honest, I would have loved to see them in the MSC main stage. Unfortunately, DFYG is just too strong. And not to forget, they didn't go down without a fight. It was a 5-game series. Yes, it went down to the final game. And then again, the DFYG had to pick away the Cho when they're going against them, just to make sure Cat9 doesn't get it. More than a good pick for side of DFYG. There was also a deny that came through for DFYG, and that's just goes to show he's so good on that hero, and he's good on that and playmaking heroes. I think that's the right word to put. He's good at the Badongs, he's good at the Cho. These are 2 of these staple picks that I've seen throughout the MSI. And not just that, the addition of the Wuzekian, knowing that they have already played that for a while, knowing the ins and outs of the hero, and that hero is kind of broken. You can use your second skill from your tower to the opponents, just covers the entire river, and you have a lot of playmaking abilities with the ultimate, and then just combining it with a lot of AoE. So they are just, I would say, once the heroes released, they're slightly ahead of the 8-ball. And knowing that they've bolstered their squad, knowing how they always are looking out for better scrims against the global teams in a global server. Yes, they've played in a 3-ban system, but I think every time they scrim in that 5-ban system as well. Some inside information, but I think Rare Atom definitely, I love that team, looking at the way they've played. But again, on the global stage, dark horse types,
Sounds like a PH scrim waiting to happen. I think that's the key for Rare Atom. Not to mention it, to wrap up our discussion on the MSC wildcard teams, who are your dark horses? Who are you predicting to make it out of the wildcard into the group stage? Your forecast, gentlemen.
Okay. All right. Here we go. My heart right now, I think, just based on statistics, I think Legion Esports has probably one of the highest chances to make it through. I don't see any other team that can come close to them, at least based off of the track record itself. But if I put Legion aside and I look at a potential dark horse, I'm with Kronos. I think Red Atom has a very good chance of making it through. They've proven that late game is not a problem for them. They win games 20 minutes and beyond. They have very powerful staple picks. In fact, even back in MSI, they almost made that Cinderella run to the lower bracket, if not for DFYG beating them in the grand finals. So overall, if not Legion, I'm looking at Red Atom. So it's either Vietnam or China.
Y'all are sleeping on the LATAM region. I'm telling you, it's Influence Rage gonna be the favorites to make it out. Not just because of the fact that I'm a LATAM master, but also looking at the way they play. And Coach Blackjacks is just the different beast when it comes to drafting. Every single time, they always end up winning the draft for some reason. Like, we can't really say winning the draft completely, but as casters, we know when we look at the draft, one team's just better than the other. They're just so good at draft, and I think that's one thing teams need to watch out for against Influence Rage. And I think they're going to be favorites because there's a pocket pick of multiple pocket picks, one of them being the Hanzo. And Hotun is a Hanzo connoisseur. He just knows how to play the hero inside out. And usually you like to see Hanzo's going for team fights, poking them down early. This guy just likes to split push on his own. And I've never seen that much come out from Hanzo players, but he definitely is one to watch out for. But apart from favorites being Influence Rate, Dark Horses, 100% Rare Atom. Like, if they get their power picks, if they're able to, if the other teams don't pick up on the Vu Zetian, then I think they can just storm their way through the entire wildcard stage. So that's a team to watch out for.
Okay.
For me, it's between these two teams for sure.
I'd hate to be a Mekong Glazer, but I think it's one of the two that's making it through to the main stage. I'm thinking Legion and I'm thinking Nightmare. It's one or the other. And then my dark horse is, I don't know if my Spanish is on point, Mr. Latam, but lo siento to Influence Rage, all right? Your hermanos, your hermanos, like, I wanna give it to them, but I think the Mongols. Yeah, we're forgetting that the Mongols beat IHC, and IHC used to be a big name. Like M5, I'm looking at M5. The Mongolians were big then, so maybe give them a year. There should be a better spot for them now. So yeah, if I'm allowed to have three, it's my show. Deal with it. I'm thinking Legion Esports, Nightmare, and the Mongols. All right, we're wrapping up this episode of MLBB Around the World. Gentlemen, thank you so much for sharing your insights on all 8 teams in the wild card. Once again, that's Kronos and that's Huskkiee. I'll be putting up their social media up here for y'all as they wave goodbye. This has been another episode of MLBB Around the World. We'll see you in the next one. MLBB Around the World is powered by ASUS ROG. Unleash unmatched gaming performance with the ROG Phone 9 Pro. AI on, game on. With next-gen AI features like XSense 3.0, X Capture 2.0, AI Grabber 2.0, and AI noise cancellation. Be unbeatable on the battlefield and in daily use with up to 24 gigs of memory, 1 terabyte of storage, and a 58 milliamp hour battery. The ROG Phone 9 Pro is now available in ASUS ROG concept stores near you.